What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Sports Dummies Podcast. I am Vinny Zampatella, and we're here today breaking down Day 2 of Wildcard Weekend, a very exciting day, a very exciting weekend. Um, this is, as I said on the consensus, this on paper was lined up to be one of the best Wildcard weekends in a while, and it definitely delivered. Day 2 just as exciting as Day 1. Maybe a little less exciting, but I think just as exciting. Definitely didn't disappoint. I will say that for sure. Just gonna sit here. I'm gonna break down both the games that we watched. You guys watched. I only watched one, and the fourth quarter of the other, and overtime. That being the Minnesota New Orleans game. I did not watch the whole game, but I got some stats to break down, and then some things I seen in the moment of the game. The moments in the game that I did watch. Some stats just breaking down. Kirk Cousins was 19 for 31 for 242 yards and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook, 94 yards and 28 carries, 3.5 yards a carry. That's a huge stat in the playoffs, that 3.5 yards per carry, because that is a milk the clock average. That is a Cousins' struggling average. That is an average that protects them in all these other situations that they can run into. That's going to be huge for them to maintain that going forward. And then the big one of the day for, I think, Minnesota offensively would be Thielen for 7 receptions, 129 yards, and 18.4 yards per catch. That's unbelievable. That's a really, really crazy weapon to have. And then I don't even have Diggs' numbers in my notes, but Diggs even Diggs is the option to put up numbers, and I'm going to assume there's a lot of pressure put on Diggs and a lot of double coverage on Diggs, which opened Thielen up to have the game that he had. But either way, that's a really impressive day. The more impressive stats or analysis from Minnesota, though, in my opinion, comes from that offense or the defense. Their offense has the power, the numbers there, the star power there. They have Rudolph. Like I said, Diggs, who I didn't mention. Cousins just being able to perform in the big moment was the big question, and he did definitely do that. Definitely. The throw to Thielen in overtime was monstrous. The throw and catch, everything monstrous. So that's definitely no doubt. But what I personally didn't know, what I was unsure of, because Cousins I knew had the capability, but would he is really what I was questioning. The defense is what made me nervous. I didn't think they could stop any of these high-powered offenses, and they held Drew Brees to 26 completions on 33 attempts for only 208 yards, one touchdown, and the big one is the interception. Things Drew Brees doesn't do, especially in big moments, doesn't turn the ball over. It's something you can't do in the playoffs and win games. And then this, to me, is the big stat that I'm going to read off this stat line. Michael Thomas, 7 receptions for 70 yards and no touchdowns. Being able to hold a star player like that, arguably the best receiver in the league right now, the best receiver in the NFC, broke records this year. I mean, he had a remarkable year, and a defense that, like I said, I was unsure if they could stop a high-powered offense. Did not only stop a high-powered offense, but held their best weapon, in my opinion, to no touchdowns and only 70 yards. That is, the average is almost less than half than of Thielen's, which is, like I said, remarkable. That defense really did play. Brees had a key fumble down the stretch in that fourth quarter when the Saints were beginning to gain momentum, and where I thought Drew Brees was going to be Drew Brees and take over the game and win the damn thing, where he didn't. He had a key fumble. Things that Drew Brees doesn't normally do. And I just hats off to the defense for doing what they did. They played really, really well. They really, really impressed me. Impressed me enough to think that a team I didn't think making it out of wild card weekend has the team built to make a run to even a Super Bowl, especially in this wide open NFC, where I don't know if San Fran is capable, because I haven't seen them. We'll know next week because they're going to play each other, but I don't know if I buy into a team with that much youth. The same issues I have with Lamar in the AFC is they have no playoff experience. Teams prepare differently for these playoff games. So I don't know, and I'll make an assessment after I watch if they win and see how they win. That's really what to me is what I find is going to be really telling of what the postseason will look like for both them teams after this weekend. When we see how they prepare for these big games and how they play in these big games, do they get flustered? So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But right now, I think Minnesota might be my favorite out of the NFC after watching how they played versus Saints, because the Saints were originally my favorite of the NFC. I thought they were the best team, most talented team, deepest team, and Minnesota handled them very well in overtime. As far as the pass interference goes in the overtime, or no pass interference, I should say, I don't have a problem with that not being called. It's too close to let that call a game, I think. It should have been, I think, looked at, but I think the call on the field is what should have stayed, no matter what. Personally, I don't see grounds for that being reviewed or overturned. I should say, not reviewed. It should have been reviewed, but I don't see that being overturned. You can't. I don't think anything that isn't egregious and blatant to overturn a game. But again, that's my personal opinion. I mean, I know a lot of Saints fans are up in arms about it and feel like the last couple of years they've just been screwed. Personally, I think as badly as I feel for you, it does happen to every team, and you guys have been putting yourselves in positions the last couple of years where you're letting it come down to a ref's call. Overtime last year, after that terrible, which I think everybody in the NFL agrees was pass interference, wasn't called. But you had the ball first in overtime, and you had the chance to go down and win the game, and you didn't. And it's a shame. It really, really is. Like I do feel for you in that aspect, because last year would have been a whole different ball game. But besides the point, it was an awesome game. Did not disappoint from the other two games we watched Saturday night. Like I said, excited to see what Minnesota's going to do going forward. But now we're going to move on to the game that I did watch. I watched the whole game, being an Eagles fan, being from Philadelphia. And this one's going to hurt a little bit. But the Philadelphia Eagles and Seattle Seahawks. The Eagles lost Carson on, I believe, his eighth play of the game. McCown came in, 18 for 24, 174 yards and 7.3 yards per completion. That's not bad. Not bad at all for coming in at 40, I think maybe 40 even, but he ain't young coming into a game that he had no intentions of playing in with a beat-up roster. I think at one point he completed his first 8 passes, I believe. I think he was 8 for 8 to coming out of the game, which is super impressive. Like I said, coming in cold, not expecting to go in. Sanders, 14 carries for 69 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. I was really surprised they didn't run the ball more consistently when Carson left the game. Especially because when we did run, they were effective. A surprising stat I'm looking at this by personnel. Ertz only had 2 receptions. The only player who had less was Burnett. The only thing I can think is Ertz was neither too banged up to get open or too banged up to where they knew that he couldn't do too much and he was just out there, hey, they got to cover you type deal. I'm assuming that's a health issue. I don't know if he was really at 100%, and I think that was more, hey, can you go? We're not expecting too much out of you, but when you're on the field, they're going to draw a lot. You're drawing a lot of attention. I was surprised to see he was playing. He is one tough guy that's a tough position to play, feeling how he feels, dealing with the injuries that he was dealing with. Wilson was 18 for 30, 325 yards and 1 touchdown. Metcalf was 7 receptions for 160 yards, 22.9 yards per catch with 1 touchdown, and really, really, really impressive numbers. He's really, really going to be a problem in the NFC going forward. Russell Wilson's always lacked a dominant group of receivers. Lockett's good, but he's never had, I can't think of a time where he's had three weapons, running back and 2 receivers, something like that, and he has it now. Jimmy Graham, but he wasn't even He was in Seattle, wasn't he? I believe he was in Seattle. Yeah. Either way, he's never had dominant. He's never had a dominant weapon like I think Metcalf and Lockett can be together. They really didn't run the ball at all. We knew that coming into this, the Eagles were the number one rush defense in the league, and they did not disappoint. The biggest one would be that they let up that one rushing touchdown to Marshawn Lynch, where he went full beast mode from the 6-yard line, I believe it was, and he was held up at like the 1, and he just ripped through people and fought to get in the end zone. That was a hell of a run, super impressive. Some real takeaways from this game. Like I said, I did watch this game more intensely, not only because I'm an Eagles fan, but because I was busy doing things during the Minnesota or New Orleans game. So, actually sitting watching this game, my notable takeaways: Seattle was 8 for 15 on third down. Philly was only 3 for 11. You don't win playoff games not converting on third down. You just don't. Time of possession. This is a shocking stat, actually, in my opinion. 33 minutes and 15 seconds for the Eagles. 26 minutes and 45 seconds for the Seahawks. It's crazy because when you look at this game on paper and you look at all the stats, minus third down conversions, and that's really the difference maker. But the Eagles won every aspect of this game. Except for inside the red zone, the Eagles did not score touchdowns and Seattle did. You cannot win playoff games kicking field goals. It just doesn't work. It doesn't. Very rare occasions. The only takeaway I'll have coaching wise on Doug Peterson in this game. Battle until those injuries. I think a couple of times late in that fourth quarter, he should have kicked a couple of them field goals, put himself in a situation and put the pressure on Seattle. Okay, we have to, put pressure on the defense because if you kick the field goals 2 times even in the red zone, now you're down. The final was 17-9. So you kick those 2 field goals. It's 17-15 now. Philly goes down and kicks one more field goal. They're winning the game instead of Seattle knew, okay, we go down and kick 1 field goal. They still get a score and get a 2-point conversion if we don't even get the field goal. I don't know, tough. I give a lot of credit to Doug this year doing what he did with the players that he had. As far as going forward for the Seahawks, I don't know if they win in Lambeau. It's a tough place to win. My picks, like I said, going out of the NFC is the 49ers or the Vikings. It's the Vikings as of now because I have not seen Garoppolo perform in a high-pressure game until he shows me he can. I'm not putting my money on him. As far as the Wildcard weekend, that was really it. That's a wrap. I'll be coming at you probably on Friday with a divisional round prediction, give you my thoughts on them games. I'm gonna wrap it up with a dummy of the week. I'll take some comments on some posts. Let me know if you guys in the comment section who you would think as the week goes on would be a good dummy of the week this week. Other than that, fellas and ladies, have a nice week, and I will talk to you Friday.